Please welcome from Sawhorse Interactive, Gino Roy to the stage.
What are we doing? So excited. All my favorite people are here. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Jeez Louise, got a lot of fun stuff to show you guys we've been working on. And welcome to Finding Your Art Direction with me, Gino Roy. I go by Heart Hurts on Roblox. And I have spent 4 years on the platform, fairly new. I have a film and animation background. And yeah, I've cut music videos for Mac Miller, Beyonce, Nicki Minaj, and I've cut a couple feature films. I've directed live action commercials and TV series. I spent 5 years doing music, VFX, and animation at Disney. So yeah, a lot of film and animation behind this. I'm an avid pig enthusiast, as you can see from my my avatar. So if I snort, that's just me being in character. Okay, and I'm based out of Los Angeles, and I work at Sawhorse. Yeah, fun fact, I actually drew this. I spent copious hours trying to, find anything quirky that felt whimsical and part of like what Sawhorse really is. And yeah, I've done a lot of that work at Sawhorse, especially the film background, doing the music videos and becoming an art director and a director in live action. So look at this, all this in 4 years. This is crazy to me. I think honestly, being new to the platform, and like 5 years ago, I just thought I was going to be at Leica or like still at Sawhorse doing like animation, like an animation wing. But no, we're here. I love it here. It is amazing. We're so honored to be nominated back-to-back years for Best Studio. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. So yeah, I started at Sawhorse 10 years ago when we were just doing film. We're a traditional film studio and doing a bunch of that work. So that's kind of like where my head's at. So, but 4 years ago, we started making Roblox games with mostly filmmakers. Like we had a bunch of filmmakers scratching our heads trying to figure out how we could do this. But we brought on some really passionate devs and Roblox experts and filmmakers like me adapting to the platform. And yeah, we're having a great time. So our other main art director, who's also a filmmaker, is Jessica Weiss-Thomas. She works out of Alaska. We're a completely remote interactive team. So she works in Alaska. She just had a baby. She's like crazy talented. I'm constantly inspired by her. But yeah, we do a lot of branded content, branded experiences. This is something that Sawhorse has done for even before interactive. We did a lot of branded content, so we're very familiar with telling brand stories, and it's really passionate. We're really passionate about telling those stories in the right way. So I didn't think I was going to be here, but I feel like I've trained my entire life for this. From building blocks to Legos, coloring books, Etch-a-Sketch, and now as a profession, after all of this training, I'm still drawing sketches and playing with blocks. That was my dad, by the way. He's a fine artist. He's incredibly talented. And today I'm here to teach you a little bit about my process and some of the tools that I use every day to accomplish them. And first we'll talk about concept art, next building a world, then lighting, and lastly color. And why these four exactly? Well, they're very powerful when you use them correctly, but when they're often skipped and left to chance. So I learned concept art and storyboarding working at Disney. So I'm going to impart a couple of things I've learned along the way, exploring visual concepts, learning how to take time to save time, and digging into the details. And this is a concept art I did in Photoshop. It's a digital painting for Walmart Discovered, and really enjoyed doing it. We were exploring like a box cubic theme, so that's where you'll find a lot of cubic imagery. So going along with that, that was something we were exploring, that cubic imagery, exploring visual concepts. So what is that? It's when you take a motif, which is a repeating pattern to inform your style that reinforces your story. So for a project that we did for Sol de Janeiro, which is a beauty and skincare brand, I studied the Brazilian architecture of Rio and noticed a lot of similar shapes to the product in their architecture. And so I thought it would be a great visual concept to actually put the products everywhere you could see them, hide them in the city. So I thought that would be really great because you're constantly looking at the product and you're constantly thinking about the brand. So you have the Boom Boom cream, that's how you say it. It's not Bum Bum, it's Boom Boom. We have that in the windows, and we have the fragrance mist in the more narrow windows, and we just put them everywhere so you're constantly looking at the brand and it's constantly telling you that story. We did another big event for Kung Fu Panda. That was like one of the greatest things to work on. This was a tricky one because we had to start working on it before the movie came out, and we weren't allowed to see the movie more than once. So we had to like really dial it in and watch it one time and just pay attention to everything and just take it all in. So, but they eventually gave us assets, but we started with sketches because that's all I really had. We had the knowledge from watching the movie. I was going frame by frame in the trailer, just trying to get every single piece of authentic architecture and like every detail correct. So, starting with sketches is a great way to go. And that informed these pieces right here, which are beautiful. And we built a whole city out of these 3 buildings, and it just looked amazing. But we started way before we had the assets. We got sketches done, and we were able to, in the sketches, point out different details we wanted to get exactly right, like this curling arm and like the sign, getting the right angles and everything is really important. So start with sketches. And this is something you can do in Photoshop, which I do. This was done in Illustrator. I like doing stuff with architecture in Illustrator because you can copy and paste the different shapes and it just feels a little bit more clean to me. But you can do this on like a sketch, like a piece of paper, like on the back of a cocktail napkin. It's all about communicating the idea to your team. So speaking of saving time, in Sol de Janeiro, we got approvals for gameplay simply by showing an overhead map. And this is great for saving time because it's a lot easier to redraw a map than it is to undo your city that you just created. And you can do a lot of time-saving steps just by erasing and redrawing. So you don't have to change anything when you're building. This is from Sol de Janeiro again. So raise your hand if you look for reference images online. Of course, yeah, everyone does. I do the same, but sometimes it's hard to find the right images, and sometimes when you do find them, it's not 100% accurate of like what you want it to be. It could be like the wrong color, or it could be just the style a little bit, and that room of error is difficult because sometimes the artists that you show it to run off in the direction you don't want them to. So it takes time off of revisions just by drawing your own reference images. So yeah, keep doing those sketches, create these like concept pieces. When you do something like this, you can really inform your entire team what you expect out of the colors and the shapes. In Crash Faster, it's a band by Morgan Tucker, his band, you probably know him. I illustrated every character, every prop, and every environment to show exactly what I wanted them to look like. So if I'm painting like this, like a tonal piece, I'll do it in Photoshop just so I can get like that painterly quality. But you can use anything free like Procreate. And for Kingship Islands, we received illustrations from the artists on their team, which was awesome. I'm constantly inspired by other artists, and especially my wonderful team. So we dug into the details of each drawing, the colors, the shapes, and really brought it to life. This whole building was my first model in a Blender. So I use Cinema 4D, but the Blender workflow in Roblox is pretty seamless. So for the next chapter, we'll be talking about building a world, from gray boxing to finding the scale, then building from the player's POV, and finally adding a piece of you. And this is from Fenty Beauty Skin Experience. That was the cream room, really beautiful. So there are 4 stages of a project. The first is concept art. The next is gray box. Then the art build. And then the finished map. And now the first 2 stages are often skipped. And you don't really need to do them, but if you do, you can take your project to the next level. And honestly, when we started this, we did very little of the first 2. And we eventually did this more and more as our projects got bigger, and it just helped out immensely. So let's dig into the details of what a gray box is. Gray boxing is a simplified look at your map, your world, everything in it as gray boxes. This helps you identify locations and objects in your world. It lets you play your game and see if it actually works before your scene is built, so you can make decisions on, do you need to move things around on the fly? And it helps plan for the next step, the art build. So you build your gray box, and you created your world in gray. Now you can think about the details that you might need in the scene and start replacing those gray boxes and what they represent. So these images from Kung Fu Panda really shows how we went from gray box to the final. Now can you see all the gray boxes and what they represented and how it kind of moved forward to the next step? And then once you have your gray box, really test it out. Scaling your experience will really help playability and increase playtime, which is always great. So think to yourself, where are my main gameplay areas? These are what I call landmarks. How many landmarks do we have? And how long does it take to get from one to the other? Because you don't want people to lose interest or get lost. So put yourself in their shoes. So when you're building, when you finally are moving props into your scene and you're actually building your scene, it's important to put yourself in your player's POV, in their point of view. So when I was building sets for stop motion at Disney, I would set the camera up and build the scene there. Anything that is in the scene, I composed it, made sure it looked really, really good, and just composed it from that angle. So when I started in Roblox, I did the same thing. I was like, okay, where are my players going to be? Where are they going to spawn in? What are they going to be seeing? And that's still how I do it today. Where your players going to be, they need to know what to do, where to go. So really help them out. And also when you're doing like thumbnails, it's great. You go back to these same places where you were composing your image. You just take pictures from there. You got like free thumbnails. So you go from each landmark. I'm going to be here. I spawn in here. That looks amazing. I need to go there, make that prominent, make sure it's like close enough, go there, and then look around. Where's the next place I need to be? What's the next thing I need to do? So in the world of branded experiences, and yes, we do a lot of them, but I love them. They're amazing to work with, products and brands and filmmakers, finally, that that you look up to. I mean, it's not bad getting feedback from Tim Burton. I think he's a hero of mine. That's crazy. So yeah, really loved working on that. But yeah, we do a lot of branded things, and sometimes you have a property that you need to expand out into an entire world. So it's on the art director and the team to figure out what is all of this land. You have to put your spin on a lot of things because you have to make it up. There's a tree, but what kind of tree? There's a building, but what kind of building? So this is where you can put your own style on it. So think back on your life. What kind of things excite you? These are parts of you. This is part of your style. So adding a piece of you is important because it makes your work really stand out from the rest. And also, it's your style. No one else can do your style. So I really like industrial architecture. I like just organic lines and concrete for some reason. I really love forms made out of concrete. So a lot of concrete, a lot of organic shapes. I think it has like this timeless but epic quality that really makes things look cutting edge. Lighting. Everything is lighting, just letting you know. Lighting is my freaking favorite, sorry. But like, I mean, when you're trying to recreate these scenes from like Beetlejuice, and you see the time and care it takes to light these beautiful scenes, and it makes you feel a certain way, you really want to get that right when you're trying to reproduce it. So, it's something that really means a lot to me. In this section, we'll go through everything that revolves around lighting, storytelling with lighting, the power of lights, cinematic lighting, and my favorite lighting tricks. So storytelling with light. How do you want the players to feel throughout the game? It's not just, you can view it as just a game, but you're taking your players on a journey. So it could have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you have to treat each location as like a scene in the movie. That's what I do. So if they spawn in, that's like the first scene in the movie, and then you move them along on the path. So you have them feel a certain way at the beginning and a certain way at the end, and you kind of take them through this whole journey. So how can you do that with lights? You can have each of the places, each of these landmarks, have a different feel. Take all of your levels, make them progress in a different way with lighting. So look at the image at the top from Fenty. That has a certain mood, so an enticing kind of magical, romantic feel. And that's a little bit different from what you look at when you see the rainforest on the right for Sol de Janeiro. It's like these different scenes in a movie, and that contrasted with these like iconic shots from Beetlejuice on the bottom that I just loved making. This is the waiting room, and then you have this cavernous area that was in the first movie, and everything just had to be right, but that mood had to be there as well from the movie. So you're creating these moods and these emotions. Now let's talk about the power of light. Light can instantly give the player context, like instantly. You know what time of day it is. You set the tone, you add the drama. It can guide your way and help direct the focus of your player. It also can make an ordinary scene look epic. Now look at these two pictures. The only difference is me turning off the lights and turning them back on. So I just turned off all of the lights I put into the scene, and it's drastically different. And without form, and then you have everything on the bottom, right? So you can tell just by the lights, what time of day it is, and you kind of feel like I need to get from this point to that point. So you have gameplay just baked in with just the lighting. Cinematic lighting is not required for every game. A lot of Roblox games don't need it. But this is how I view anything when I'm making it. I come from the film background, so as soon as I think about how could this look, this is where my brain goes. So cinematic lighting is making your scene look like a movie. And how do you achieve this if you want to? Add depth with your atmosphere settings and really separate the background from the foreground, which is something like doing with a film camera with those settings. You can even use the depth of field effect. Those are just really easy ones to get in, but like I love using the sun rays to create like this soft gradation. And that was one of the first things like, oh, that really looks like a movie. When you put a sunset back there and it really blends all the colors together, like in Elton John right there, it just casts this like gradient. So it makes your flat colors look like a little bit more blended into the scene. And it's a great way to start doing this, if you haven't done it before and you want to, is take a still from a scene in a movie that you love and just analyze it. Where's the light? What's the tone of it? Put it side by side in your studio and just kind of try to match the lighting, the direction of the lighting, pay attention to where the shadows are, how they're treating the color, and just try to match it. Put those colors in it, and that's a great way to start. But when you're working with source material like Stranger Things, like you can really analyze how they're doing it and really try to match it. That was a really fun project to work on. So cinematic lighting is also trying to produce a natural light. And that's something that I've learned here at Sawhorse, doing actual filming on sets. Sometimes you have to manipulate your lighting with film lights. Sometimes you have to shoot something in the dead of night, and it has to look like it's the afternoon. So you have to make this look natural with very unnatural sources. So one way to make your lights in Roblox look natural is by simulating global illumination. So what is global illumination? This is when a light is coming in and hits something, and it bounces and scatters across the surface. So how you can put this into practice is, see the picture here on the left? This is just one light coming through the window, straight in. But if you see on the right here, I've placed a couple of lights, one on the floor, so it comes in, hits the floor, you put the light on the floor, and it comes in and also bounces off the wall, so I put another light on the wall. Now, don't just quadruple all of your lights and think that's going to solve everything. It actually might work horribly against you, and it also will crash your game, so don't do that. It's not good for optimization, it's not good for anything. So this was something big. This is a big room. This had a stained glass wall, light coming through. So if you hit that one element, if you do global illumination on this wall and the ground over here, it makes everything else look way more natural. So just pick a couple of different places you do this. That's important, that you want people to look at. Lighting an interior is sometimes a challenge when you have many objects in your scene. This is one of my favorite scenes in Beetlejuice that I worked on, and it's the boiler room. And when you have a lot of things in your room, things can get really dark and hard to light. So why don't you make it easy on yourself? Remove the shadows from everything overhead or just anything around that area that might be blocking or creating a really, really dark room, and you're gonna see it really come to life and look great. So I use this plugin called the Celestial Body Dragger, and it helps you move your sun or moon with your mouse, which is great. And I was, for the longest time, I was just using the time of day and the geographic latitude and trying to dial it in. But now you can just use it with just dragging your mouse around. This Celestial Body Dragger by Maximum ADHD, such a brilliant plugin. The last section we're going to talk about is color. And we're going to talk about color and emotion, balancing light and color, and gameplay signals. My father is a fine artist, so I learned a lot of what I consider my color lessons from his oil paintings. Just looking at his oil paintings all day and just like, well, how did he do that? Why did he do that? And painters really pick their colors with emotional intention, and you can do that, with Roblox when you're creating a scene. So balancing light and color seems like an easy thing to do, but it's really, really not. You have to remember two things. Your skybox. Your skybox is huge. It affects every color in your scene. So in the photo from Elton John, at the top, you see that the sun is coming through and really giving all of this, the whole scene, like it's warming up the shadows. It's changing all of your colors to be a little bit more warm. And this is great in a way, but also you have to make sure that if there are colors in your scene that you need to be perfect, you might have to counterbalance what your scene is doing with the skybox. So in Slivingland, we have this skybox that's pink, and it's just baking this pink into everything that we're doing. And I really love the way that feels. So we broke it up with the neon details, but it was really interesting how that was predominantly, the whole look of it is basically the skybox. And when you're doing things like branded material, like we often do, we have to counteract and rebalance their brand colors and to make everything look like what you're going to buy or the characters you'll see in a movie. So you really have to make sure that all of these brand colors, the color of the makeup, the color of the characters in this Kung Fu Panda, that they're really representative of what is trying to be shown. Color and emotion. I'm all about emotion. My username, Heart Hurts, has a lot to do with emotion. I love things that really make you feel something. I love Pixar movies that and just makes when it tugs at your heartstrings. So yeah, that's a big thing of what I try to do and what I make. So, do you feel a difference between these two images? You know, the first one is like relaxed and it makes you feel just like warm and a sense of being calm. And the other one has like an electric and bold feeling and a little bit of magical. I might have lit that too bright. Kind of looks like a nuclear bomb went off. But I love that stuff. So all of these colors, everything that you see here, that makes you feel different ways. So a trick that I use if you want to make something a little softer and more relaxed, like the one on the left, is by limiting your color palette and try to choose a couple of different colors, less like 2 or 3. And you'll see that like it produces different effects. Sometimes if you have one color, it has like this really like very dramatic feel, but sometimes it calls for it. So try that out. So in the left, we have creams, brown, and pink. And I feel like my character standing in there is all aesthetic as well, with the pink popsicle and the boar's head that's brown. It's always good. Okay, lastly, color for gameplay. So this was a tricky one for me coming from film. So for this one, I was trying to do kind of like Sin City. I don't know if you kind of know that movie, but like it was going for like a bold, like comic look, and just like shoved a bunch of saturated lights in the scene. And you know, color for gameplay is imperative. It helps the player navigate your map, and it directs them where to go. But this is very tricky when you're trying to do something kind of freaky with the color to begin with. And you know, bright lights that are saturated, people will kind of look for cues when they're playing. And you know, if something's red or something's green or something's blue, sometimes that stuff means stuff to people, especially when you're coming from other games that do it so well. So you got to make sure that you're being cognizant of what colors that you're using. For Kingship Islands, I had all my whole style here. I was like, this looks so cool, man. The whole thing is perfect. And then we started gameplay testing, and people were like hopping around and like doing crazy stuff, and like they're avoiding different areas. They're like running into the bushes, and I'm like, this is obviously not what we want. We want you to collect these things on the ground. Why are you guys acting so weird? And they're like, well, that's obviously lava over there. Something's going to explode, or something's going to burn me, and I'm going to die. So I'm avoiding that. And I'm running into the bushes because I don't know why, but there's green over there. So you got to keep in mind all of this stuff affects them. You want to help the player as much as possible. Help them help you. Really help them play their game the way you want it to. So here's some takeaways from my art process. Remember to find those visual concepts while doing concept art. Sketch things out to save time. Build your world from the player's POV and add a special piece of you. Tell a cinematic story with lighting, and balance color and light for an emotional response. And these are just some of the many things that I've learned finding my art direction. And now it's time to find yours. So what direction will you go next? Thank you so much, and I'd love to answer some of your questions. Dude, Sawhorse is representing right now. Oh my gosh. They're really talented people in the room. Even you guys too. I'm so excited you guys are here. Is anybody have any questions? Nothing too technical, please.
Hi. What made you make the switch from the animation industry to the video game industry?
Those two guys right there.
Oh, yeah.
They made me. No, it was a big initiative over at Sawhorse, like we want to make these games, who's passionate about gaming, and all of our hands went up. So it was really hard to see who was going to stick around to do post-production. But no, we're really strong on both ends now. We have a big post-production department that helps us with our gameplay as well. So once we have our entire project launching, we have the team in post-production creating all the promotional material for social, and it's really awesome. We just started doing like tutorials, video tutorials on how to play our game, which is super amazing. So I'm excited about that. But what made I love video games. I was actually traumatized by video games when I was little. My father, the fine artist, he didn't let me have a Nintendo or any gaming system until I was 18 years old.
Wow.
So now I'm making games for a living, Dad. Anybody else?
I hope this is not too technical. You were talking about lights, about how many of them can ruin performance. And I was wondering if you have a recommendation on what's like the limit of lights that you should have in a scene.
If you want to analyze the first couple games that I made, don't do that. It did. Yeah, I think you know when it's too much. But I would say it depends really, like how big your environment is and what you need to do. I would say err on the at least you need to do. I would go back once you've completed your scene and turn them on and off and see if you really need them. And this really comes in handy for optimizing, but I forgot to mention, but there's a plugin by Woot 3 that's the lighting editor, and that was something that I use every like 20 minutes. It's a very powerful plugin. It shows you where all of your lights are and what type of light, what color it is, and it really helps you troubleshoot. If anything's like really bright and you're like, why is that just nuclear? And you can just see like, oh, when you click it on, it shows you all the lights. And like, oh, I put like 18 lights right there. That's probably it. So I'm trying to give you like a good estimate. I would say, well, the information that I got from the devs is you don't want there's a radius or diameter of the light coming out. You don't want those to kind of cross over each other, although I do it all the time and I love doing it. I love giant lights. I like stretching it all the way to 60 and just like putting whatever feels right there and then remove what's not needed. Did that help?
So you don't say to yourself, I'm gonna only add 4 lights. You add as many as you can, then check the plugin and...
As many as necessary, not as many as I can.
Okay.
I've been hit on the arm too many times for doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. Firstly, I just want to say that I'm Brazilian, and your pronunciation for boom boom is spot on.
Thank you. Validation, I love it.
I just wanted to know, how do you communicate the art direction with the rest of the team? Like, do you create Bibles or documents?
Oh, yes. So communicating, I have a couple things for that. I really think communicating with your team is important. Team morale is really important. When you're starting some big, project that everyone's excited about, the people that know about it are excited about, it's really great to have like a welcoming meeting with them and just gather them around and really get people hyped on what it is. Some people might know certain parts, certain details about the project. Is this a musical or is this a movie? And it's really cool to get them all excited about it at the same time and also introduce each team member to each other. As far as workflow is concerned, Milanote is something that I use personally. We've used a couple of different things, but I like to lay things out in there. Why do I like doing that? It's on a grid system, and it makes everything really clean. And then you can also put all your images in there, and you can zoom way in, and so you can put a whole bunch of stuff in there. You can always copy and paste. I think you can copy and paste pictures as well, which is not easy to do with other apps. Do you use Milanote?
Usually I use FigJam for it.
Okay, yeah, that's great too. We use that on other projects, but with my mindset, I feel like Milanote helps me really well. And then as far as like workflow, sometimes we just do, on some projects, all of the tasks, map it out in Milanote, but then we also use Jira as well when it gets a little crunchier.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Over here.
Nobody's wanting to see me dance?
So this is a question regarding Lamborghini Labs, a project.
Okay, cool, yeah.
The headquarters building, was that a design that you yourself and the team concepted, or was it one that Lamborghini gave to you? And if so, what was the inspiration for it? Okay, so a lot of that is just stuff I love that for when you're pitching this stuff out, at Sawhorse we like to build it to what we think it would look like at the very beginning, and really pitch the final product. And that was something that I worked with this very talented artist, Santiago, to make. And he works out of Colombia, and we just giggle every morning and make beautiful things. And it just came out of a little bit of exploration. We wanted it to be epic. We wanted it to be like the most exciting thing that could house the Lamborghini. I thought it was pretty epic to put it in a desert. And a lot of their promotional material, there's a little bit of, there was a lot of elements from the promotional material that we kind of bit off of as well. But yeah, a little bit of everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.